Well, joining us now is former White House Chief of Staff and Senior Advisor at Bondi Partners, Mick Mulvaney. Mick, so good to have you here tonight. What did you make of that interview, first of all?
James, my favorite question was what are you going to do on the first day? And the answer was essentially, well, what I'm going to do on the first day is what I'm going to do on the first day. And by that, I mean what I said I was going to do on the first day and all the things I've said I'm going to do. And by that, I mean the things that I said I'm going to do. A lot of hope, a lot of change. You know, the things I've talked about. That's exactly what I'm going to do on the first day. It was one of the most vapid sort of discussions I've seen in a long time in politics. I think the only person who did worse tonight than Kamala Harris was Tim Walz, who tried to defend lying about his military record. So it was not a good night. My guess is it will be well received by the left-leaning press in this country because at least it was an interview. But I think if you were an undecided voter trying to figure out what Kamala Harris stands for on anything, you left tonight still wanting.
Yeah, and Mick, I mean, there were some pretty poor answers to some pretty basic questions like this one.
Joe Biden and I and our administration worked with members of the United States Congress on an immigration issue that is very significant to the American people and to our security, which is the border. And through bipartisan work, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, a bill was crafted, which we supported, which I support. And Donald Trump got word of this bill that would have contributed to securing our border. And because he believes that it would not have helped him politically, he told his folks in Congress, don't put it forward. He killed the bill.
Mick, two things about this. Number one, I mean, she was border czar during this historic influx of illegal migration. And number two, what about this sort of style that she has where every time she gets sort of challenged or out of her depth, she goes into this kind of school teacher mode, like she's explaining things to a bunch of 5-year-olds.
It works, James, on the left-leaning press. I mean, keep in mind that Democrats really do see organizations like CNN, like MSNBC, NBC, ABC, CBS, Washington Post, New York Times, but I could go on, as organizations attached to the Democrat Party. So the answer that she gave is satisfactory to folks on the left. It just doesn't necessarily appeal to folks who are down the middle or folks who are undecided voters. On the immigration issue, what I wish Dana Bash, the interviewer from CNN, had asked is the follow-up question, which is, okay, so you now support a bill that supports building a wall, even though during the debate you said that building a wall was un-American. When you say you've kept your values but changed your position, how are those two things consistent? Is building a wall still un-American? Again, you could ask this of Kamala Harris on a bunch of different issues because she has switched on a bunch of them. I'm not sure how the answer, well, I'm keeping to my values, really explains why you're completely flipping on the issues. I wish we had seen that follow-up on the border wall for sure.
Well, I mean, we had another sort of similar thing happen on the issue of fracking. Have a look at this.
Do you still want to ban fracking?
No, and I made that clear on the debate stage in 2020, that I would not ban fracking. As vice president, I did not ban fracking. As president, I will not ban fracking.
In 2019, I believe, in a town hall, you said you were asked, would you commit to implementing a federal ban on fracking on your first day in office? And you said, there's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So yes. So it changed in that campaign?
In 2020, I made very clear where I stand. We are in 2024, and I've not changed that position, nor will I going forward. I kept my word, and I will keep my word.
What made you change that position at the time?
Well, let's be clear. My values have not changed.
Well, Mick, her values have not changed. I mean, I'm starting to ask the question here, Mick, was this interview actually a mistake?
Yeah, it's sort of like that. I was against fracking before I was before fracking, or for fracking before I was against fracking.
Yeah.
No, it's not a mistake because, again, it was on at 9 o'clock on Thursday. For those of you who aren't familiar with our calendar, it is a long weekend here. It's a bank holiday weekend. It's the Labor Day weekend on holiday on Monday. So this is about as dead an airtime as you can get media-wise. But they had to do it. My guess is you will not see Tim Walz and Kamala Harris do a lot more interviews before this election. Why? They're doing fine without doing these types of things, as they learned with their first policy proposal, James, when they came out to talk about price fixing, price gouging that turned out to be a complete disaster from a campaign perspective. This is probably going to be perceived as a campaign disaster as well, and you won't see it anymore. You used a great line on the introduction. I've not heard it yet. I'm going to steal it, which is they're trying to ride the vibe. They're trying to essentially sort of talk about hope and change and feelings and all these types of sort of subjective things and ride that all the way into the White House. That's what they're going to try and do. They're not going to try and win this race on policy. I think you put her policies up against Donald Trump would win this race going away with the American public, but they're banking on this race not being about policy. They're hoping it will be about feelings.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is, too, the thing was so staged, and it looks at times even like she might have been looking down at her notes. And as we talked about, she couldn't even nail the basic stuff. With the debate now coming up, if that's going to happen, I think some of the CNN people, if you look at this bit from the CNN After Action panel, I think they're getting nervous. Look at this.
Let's not be mistaken. I mean, Donald Trump is tall and very loud.
Yes.
And he is very persistent. It's not going to be so easy to just say, okay, let's move on. He's going to be right there.
Yes.
I think there's sort of a bit of a glimmer of understanding there that they may have a problem with this candidate in anything with the most scripted situation.
Keep in mind, she did run for president in 2020. She dropped out of the race in 2019. I'm not making that up. She didn't even make it to the first primaries in Iowa. She's not great on her feet. She is better, James. I will give her credit. She was better tonight than she was, say, 3 or 4 years ago. Being vice president for a couple of years will help that, I'm sure. But I think the Democrats are already sort of lowering expectations for her performance in a debate. I'm in the minority in this country. I still think there's a 50-50 chance there is no debate on September 10th because the Democrats may look at this event tonight along with the experiences they've had on Kamala Harris talking about policies in the past and say, you know what? It's not worth it to do this debate. Let's figure out a way to get out of it. So, look, I hope it takes place. I know a lot of folks in this country would like to see it. I'd like to see it. I think it's important that the voters have a chance to talk, to hear what the candidates have to say. But the Democrats may make the calculated sort of analysis that they're better off not doing that debate and not doing any more of these interviews going forward.
Yeah, and something that's just very interesting to me, Mick, too, finally, about her media strategy. I've noticed that while they're hiding her away and Trump can't get access to big media, he's doing all these podcasts where he's doing hours or 2 hours long with people with millions of followers, kind of doing an end run around the media. Is this making a difference, do you think?
Oh, it is. No, that's the Donald Trump. That's the Donald Trump model. Keep in mind, he did that in 2016. That was the beauty of Twitter to Donald Trump in 2016 and 2020. He could not get his message out amongst the mainstream corporate media in this country. So he turned to Twitter and got his message directly to the voters. You're going to see that more and more. Now he's doing more podcasts. Look, CNN is not going to give Donald Trump fair shake. You just showed the clip of Kellyanne Conway. They're going to push back every single time on every single thing the Republicans say, and they'll let the Democrats go. They didn't even push back at all on Tim Walz tonight about his comment about his military service and so forth. But yeah, you'll see Donald Trump go around the military. He won in 2016 doing that. He thinks he can win in 2024 again doing it that way as well.
Mick, thanks so much, Mick Mulvaney, as always, for your insights and analysis here on the U.S. Report.